Welcome to the podcast of the Filipino Freethinkers on President Noynoy Aquino's State of the Nation address a while ago. So what happened at the State of the Nation address was very disappointing for us, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So, Margie, your reactions on what happened?
I was very disappointed with what occurred during the SONA because I believe that he left out a very, very, very important issue, which was the RH bill. And he also thanked Cardinal Rosales, the Archbishop of Manila, and the current CBCP president, Bishop Palma. Yeah, for and stated that there was a good relationship between the state and the church, the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and what really makes me angry is how when he said that the clergy and the state would work together,
Right.
when he said clergy, he only referred to one of the many clergies or one of the many bishoprics or
Yes.
religious hierarchies in the Philippines.
Yes.
And that's, of course, the Roman Catholic hierarchy.
Mhm.
Now, it could be true that the largest church in the Philippines is the Roman Catholic Church,
Okay.
but that does not mean that he ignores all of the rest.
Mhm.
And it contradicts what he said earlier, that he's the president of that's above all faiths.
Yes.
So, Dustin, what are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, I was thinking that it's possible that it's the only available political move for him, since majority of Filipinos, as we all know, are Catholics. So if you're the president of a Catholic country, then you might not really have much of a choice but to side with them in order to avoid any form of revolt or rebellion or anger from the very same people that put you in that position. But if we are talking about whether any secular matters are being violated, of course, that is very obvious there, that part of our constitution implies that we have to be secular, we have to treat every religion as if, we have to treat every religion equally without any preference towards any particular religion. And that is clearly violated here, regardless of whether or not our president is merely trying to please the majority of our people.
Well, as far as our constitution goes and as far as the government should go, the Philippines is a country of citizens. So it's not really a Catholic country. It's not a non-Catholic country. Religion just does not come into the picture when you talk about government matters. So that's, I think, an important lesson that our government has not learned yet. And no matter how much he says about how this administration is different from the previous administration, when it comes to that issue of secularism, I think not much has changed in terms of recognizing the importance of secularism. Although compared with what GMA did the previous administration, I think there is an improvement. Although for a president such as GMA to say that there are many ways to skin a cat, but every single time she'll use the Catholic way to skin a cat. I mean, it's not a challenge or it's not an accomplishment to improve over that.
I think it's such old hat for Pinoy to think, if ever, that he would like to pander to the Catholics by just sticking to pandering to the Catholics in the SONA. Because even though we have a lot of Catholics in this country, some of them agree with secularism.
Yes.
Just because they're Catholic doesn't mean that they think that there should be a theocracy in this country. They agree. So there are many Catholics who believe that there should be reproductive health.
Yes.
Many of them believe that there should be a separation of church and state. That they can practice their faith on their own terms while the government can do their thing.
I think one of the main problems we have here is the perceived influence of the Catholic Church. And I say perceived because, as for the actual influence, they are segregated or separated in different chapters, right? We have more
That's
than one type of Catholicism. And yet, when a person says that he's Catholic, it does not really specify what type of Catholic he is. You have the Aglipayan Catholics.
You mean Christian? What type of Christian?
Not Catholic.
No, I'm even Catholic. When a person says that he's Catholic, that's Catholic in general, right? Like, it does not really specify what type of Catholic he is, and not all Catholics even agree on their
That's
own
true. Yeah.
beliefs, right? So when we are talking about the Catholic influence or the Catholic community, what really are we talking about? It's like talking about the Filipino people in general, which is an abstract concept, which might be perceived as having this major big influence when in actuality, it can actually be just a group of minorities bunched together by a single term. So I
But
think we should treat them as segregated or separated parts of a particular community and not an entire community as a whole.
So you're saying that we can separate the Catholic Church hierarchy, like formed by the CBCP and a few individuals, from the laity, and when you go to the laity, you can even segregate them into further groups. So there's the Católico Cerrado,
Yeah.
who strictly adheres to the doctrine of the Catholic Church. Then you have the wide variety of cafeteria Catholics who think for themselves,
Yeah.
and who choose and pick those doctrines that apply to them.
Yeah.
And,
And with regard to the cafeteria Catholics, I think it is them who should push forward these ideas that they agree with. Let's say, for example, Catholics who agree with the RH bill do not necessarily have to adhere to whatever, I mean, since they reject some of the beliefs of the Católico Cerrado, as we have mentioned earlier anyway, why not push forth a type of a Catholic belief that promotes things or belief or policies that might be good for our nation, such as the RH bill, and for some of them, even the divorce bill.
Yeah, and the thing is, there are some groups who are like that, like the Catholics for RH.
yes.
I
yes.
mean, and so it's such a striking it's such a striking thing that Pinoy didn't mention groups like that, and or didn't mention issues that a lot of people are clamoring for, regardless of their belief.
Yes, and the RH bill is obviously foremost in the minds of most of the Filipinos in our country.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the most controversial issue,
It's such a heated topic.
and for the president of the Philippines to completely ignore the fact that we are clamoring for the RH
Yeah.
bill, that there's controversy behind this, I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's the silence is way louder than what he's
So
saying.
so what could it mean? I mean, why did he ignore this issue instead of speaking about it, even in a cursory manner, which I think is the least he could have done for the many Filipinos who've been asking for this bill?
Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I think the fact that he thanked Archbishop Rosales and CBCP President Palma says a lot. I think there might have been like something that happened. I can't really say for sure factually, but they must have had some sort of influence
Yes.
on what
yes.
Pinoy had to say, because Pinoy mentioned something about dialogue.
Yes. Yes.
Dialogue between him and between the government and the Catholic Church. So I mean, what kind of dialogue could that have been?
Well, I know that they've like spoken to each other at least 3 times.
Mm-mm. Regarding the
Privately.
reproductive health bill.
Yeah,
Yes.
regarding the reproductive health bill, and there has been tension,
Yeah.
and the dialogue officially ended,
Mm.
and or I don't know, was postponed indefinitely, maybe until now.
Mm.
It's only now that we are hearing that the dialogue will resume with the CBCP, and it's really not a good thing. If you listen to his State of the Nation address, there was this part where he was telling people about this story about a woman who approached him and said, "Be careful because you might be stepping on
Other
many many toes."
Yeah.
Right? And what's happening is, ironically, he might be stepping on the toes of that woman and all the other women in the Philippines by not including the RH bill in his State of the Nation address.
Yeah. On Filipinos toes in general, not even women's. I mean, it's a
And right after he tells the story of this woman warning Pinoy about stepping on toes, he mentions Cardinal Rosales. He mentions the new president of the CBCP. And I think that's just, I don't know, did his speechwriters...
oh, but my lip service. No.
Yeah.
Another very, very ironic thing about the SONA was that he kept on mentioning his wang wang thing. And his wang wang, I mean, for those who are not familiar, it's about not giving special priorities to certain people. And that is ironically what he has been doing by not mentioning the RH bill. I mean, throughout the past year, he has been mentioning that he is standing firm to the passage of the reproductive health bill, and then suddenly in the SONA, he doesn't mention it. There is some preferential treatment there. I have to say.
Yes, just to review, at an address he delivered in UP, he even said that even if the Catholic Church excommunicates him,
Yeah.
he would be willing to pass
Yes.
the reproductive health
Yes.
bill. And for a time, he even called it responsible parenthood.
Yes.
Maybe that's his way of compromising
Sure.
with the anti-RH bill.
People.
People. But then he agreed to call it the RH bill. And like we were hoping as RH advocates that he would include the RH bill in the SONA, but here we are and we don't have it.
There are actually only three things that I was looking forward to. The Freedom of Information Bill,
Another
the
important
Reproductive
bill,
Health
yes.
Bill, and maybe the Divorce Bill. And yet, none of those were actually spoken of throughout the entire speech. I was just wondering what was the point, right? I mean, why is he even up there talking about these things that are, in my opinion, mostly irrelevant when there are such important matters that he could be talking about, such as the Wang Wang thing. Come on, that's so last year, right?
Yes.
I mean, so what? So what if this person does not use siren? I mean, I don't even care. So what if this person uses siren? I mean, how much will that affect me? Whereas the Freedom of Information Bill, the Divorce Bill, and the RH Bill can actually save and change lives. I mean, who cares about the Wang Wang thing? How much impact does it actually have in our lives?
It's called the State of the Nation Address. So it has to talk about something that's currently happening, the what's currently happening in the country. And one of the hottest topics right now is the PCSO scandal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about preferential treatment, that's preferential treatment. And he doesn't even touch on that topic at all. And that's something that is a hotly contested topic right now. And it's still an ongoing issue. I mean, if he wants to be a very up to date and very forward thinking kind of president, you would think that he'd mention that.
Yeah. I think he did mention something about PAGCOR.
Okay.
And he did mention something about budget being used properly this time around.
Okay.
Yes, but he did ignore again that issue.
Yeah, that's a huge hole in the.
Yeah, the PCSO. He could have at least mentioned that issue and promised to the Filipinos that there would be no preferential treatment. But again, I'm not sure if he can fulfill those promises. And speaking of the RH bill and the divorce bill, these are the two issues that really show how the Philippines, or how even Catholics, are not represented by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. Like, when it comes to the RH bill, 70 to 80% of the country, according to recent surveys, agree that the RH bill is needed. When it comes to the divorce bill, like from 43%, like some time ago, the number of Filipinos who support the divorce now went up to 50%, compared to only 33% who are against it. So there's been a clear shift of the mentality of Filipinos who now start to think for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's about time. I mean, we're the only country, I think, in the world, right?
Yeah.
We are the only country in the world without divorce.
And the RH.
Exactly. I mean, it's as if no wonder other countries think that we travel in rafts, in wooden rafts. I mean, how else would they perceive us? We are the only country in the world who have no divorce.
Yeah.
How primitive is that, right?
Well, some people would consider the Vatican a country, but I don't. So
it's not the state.
Well, there. I mean, the SONA, or the State of the Nation address, is over. Many hopes were dashed, and I don't know how we will request our government to, I guess, maybe review what happened in the SONA, review what happened during the PCSO hearings that I think also gave preferential treatment to the CBCP. And these two events, I think, point to the lack of secularism in our country. So before we end, let's give our short State of Secularism address, or SOSA, in the Philippines.
All right.
Right? So, in the previous administration, it was really bad. with GMA obviously pandering to the bishops. Now with Noynoy, at least there's some semblance of resistance.
Yeah, there's
Right.
some sort of distance.
Yeah, there's some sort of distancing.
However small.
At the end of the day, I think he's still not as secular as many of us would want him to be, but there is some improvement, and
Yes.
and we will monitor what happens in the coming months. It's the state of secularism in society that I think has changed a lot,
Yes.
right? So society has been more open to criticizing the Catholic Church or other religious leaders or organizations that violate that secularism mandated by our Constitution. And that's a good thing. I mean, more people should be open to criticizing their leaders, no matter where they may be. I mean, regardless of leaders in politics, leaders in business, and leaders in religious organizations, they should be open to being criticized. And this is why we helped launch the Bantay Bishop movement, which hopes to serve as the watchdog of secularism in this country.
Right. That's all for me.
That's all. Margie, any...
The past year has been very eventful for secularists, I really have to say. And I feel really good that as Red said, things are looking up for secularism as long as people stick to the agenda and just keep working towards it. Just because we are not part of the government, just because we are ordinary citizens, doesn't mean that we can't do our part in forwarding secularism in our country, because it's the only thing to do.
Yes, and we shouldn't be content
Yes.
to watch what's happening in our country,
Yeah, and just
and
this.
do nothing.
Yeah.
Some people want to share links on Facebook or Twitter. Some people just shrug it off. But no matter what you can do, I mean, what's important is that you do it.
Yes.
And you don't disparage the people who are actually out there.
Yes.
Like, we've been participating in mobilizations and demonstrations to show more people about the issues.
Yes.
And for some people, I think they don't like that. But I think if we do not stand up,
Get up and do something. Yeah.
yeah, things are gonna remain the same.
There's only so much we can say. We have to put these words into action.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't really take much to make a difference. Just knowing about the issue, thinking about it, and making a stand, regardless of whether you go out on the streets or not. Just having the ability to take a stand, to say that, you know what, I agree with this guy, or you know what, I disagree with this guy. I think that would be enough. Just to have enough knowledge to say I agree or I disagree. I don't even care if it's there, if someone would be on the opposite side of whether they agree with the archbill or not. But I want them to take a stand, because I believe, I truly believe that with actual reasoning, with actual common sense, I think that many people would buy with our position, would agree with us that yes, the RH bill is important, the divorce bill is important, the freedom of information bill is important, and these are things that could help develop our country. And again, it doesn't really take much. All it takes is a little bit of time to read and to analyze and to think, and that's all we're basically asking. I mean, you don't have to actually take the streets. You don't have to. We're not asking everyone. We're not requiring people to write articles about it or to post links.
Yeah.
Just know about it. Just know about the issue and take a stand, take a position.
Yeah, as long as you voice your opinions. I mean, Pinoy says that we are supposedly his boss. So the least we could do is at least take a stand and show him that we feel strongly for something.
Okay, so if you guys would like to share your comments, just comment on this video on YouTube or on our website, or contact us via our contact form. And thank you very much. We hope that the same time next year, the State of the Nation address or the State of the Secularism address would have some improvement.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.